Hi guys,
Jesus.
welcome back to Casting Commons, the show where we talk and discuss all things Pauper. I am your host Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the prophetic prism himself, Race.
Hello, and welcome to Casting Commons, the show where we spike everyone's audio.
Not wrong with waking people up in the morning. If you're listening in the morning, that is, for sure. But, so Paul, what have you been up to this week? Magic related, I guess.
Yeah, a bit more chilled than last week, obviously.
Mm.
I guess the main thing is locally we're trying to resurrect F&Ms a bit. They died off pretty hard. There's basically because there's too many formats and it's hard to try and run something for every format, especially as we don't have an LGS where we are. But yeah, we had a Pauper F&M, which was 10 people, so that's pretty decent for us. And I ended up winning with Toadstool Bogles, which played quite well actually. I was quite impressed with it.
You are a big fan of Toadstool, admirer, to be fair.
Yeah, it's decent. Other than that, not a huge amount. I've been winding down a bit after last week.
That's fair.
What about yourself?
Yeah, it's been a weird week. Obviously, last week we're trying to obviously test and obviously going to the open and things like that. So I've just been trying to get back into the swing of things recording wise. So I've done a couple of leagues to record. I just haven't put them up yet. But I've got a couple of ideas where they're a bit different than the whole he's a 5-0 or 5-0. Let's be honest, I never 5-0 anything. But he's a league. He's 5 games. And then post it up. So, but unfortunately, they do take a little bit longer to kind of to mess about with or edit, etc. So, yeah. So I'm just trying to see if I can get those to work where I'm happy with them. That's
You
pretty
did
much.
your tier list video as well, right? That was this
Yeah,
week.
yeah, that was beginning of this week.
That
I
was
think
pretty
so.
fun one to watch.
I think it was Friday actually. It was back end of last week, I guess. But yeah, since we've last recorded.
Yeah.
I did enjoy doing that. I do enjoy the tier videos.
Mm.
They always spark a good discussion, and I also realized people decided to. I'd never received so many comments or DMs from random creators. Were like, "Can you send me the link to your tier thing?" I'm like, "Why mine? Mine's no good." But loads of people just started making it, and then it was like, "Oh, hey, use it, crack on." Felt famous.
I think it's one of those. Obviously, you went quite into depth or in depth, getting all the different decks, like infringe decks and stuff like that,
Mm,
and making it quite clear by the images what everything was.
yeah.
Whereas a lot of the stock ones obviously miss loads of stuff out or have like
Mm,
a weird choice for the images for certain decks.
yeah. That was definitely honest to God, that thing took so long. Like I actually had to Google type for a card image and then put it into paint effectively and then put a text on top of it and everything and then save it as an image and yeah, it was
And that's why everyone wants yours because they don't want to do
you know it's technical when I had to use paint.
that.
But yeah, it was good fun. I've got a couple of interesting articles coming out as well, which is quite cool. I've got one on the health and this what I think the health and the state of Pauper is as well. So that's coming out
Cool.
probably next couple of weeks. So you definitely should check out that.
Mm.
Got a deep dive into the format. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's something a bit different, and it'll be quite interesting to see that actually.
So yeah. Anyways, guys, that is enough of us waffling on. Mainly me waffling on as per. Let's dive into some news. What did anything really interesting happen this week? I actually don't think anything's happened, right? No, but we actually did. We finally got. If you haven't seen, there has been a PFP announcement as the Casting Commons curse continues. We mentioned that they would make a announcement video last week, so it didn't happen. So now it must happen this week. It's the rule. And it's always serious when I say that they're going to make an announcement video. But we finally got there. The general update for it is that there will be no change, which is the same thing that they said 4 months ago. The only discussion was that they were thinking about unbanning Prophetic Prism due to...
Which should have been banned in the first place.
Well, yeah, which is true. but because to help Tron and other slower decks and things like that. Yeah, it's
I thought it was quite funny. They mentioned, oh, we're thinking about unbanning Prophetic Prism, but one of the negatives could be it might make multicolored affinity decks too good. I'm like, well, you've given them bridges and you've let them have bridges forever. They're already too good. It doesn't
yeah,
make a difference. Grixis Affinity is not really going to start splashing all the glitters.
yeah,
It's not set up for that, and Prophetic Prism doesn't really facilitate that by itself. So
yeah.
I think you're fine.
Yeah, I think overall it was a lot of people have said it's a very non-announcement,
Mm.
as it's an announcement about nothing really. It's their thoughts on the format. You know, they have a lot of they're keeping an eye on Name Sticker Goblin because it's slightly different online. You know, they're potentially looking at unbanned Prophetic Prism. They've seen obviously the speed of the format is faster than what it used to be. They don't know if that's a bad thing. They basically asked us a lot, obviously, what we thought of the speed, what we thought about unbans, what we thought about Name Sticker Goblin, all that sort of stuff, which obviously we can dive into a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I think overall it's an announcement that would have went down a lot better 2 months ago if they just went, we're not changing anything right now. We're keeping an eye on these things. But these are things that they've known have been super powerful for months and months and months. And in the case of Swiftspear, probably a year at this point, if not longer. Um, and there's just been obviously huge gaps between any communication from the PFP at all. And then
Yeah,
when you get communication, it's just oh, we're still just thinking about this, which in some cases is fine, but ultimately, I think if you're going to do that, more communication is better than waiting
yeah,
6 months and then just saying, oh, we're still doing nothing.
yeah. I think ultimately I'm on the same page. Like I don't mind these updates. These we're monitoring, we're looking at these things as you say, but these need to be semi-regular. I'd say
Yeah.
once, at least once every 2 months, 8 week, something along that. Especially in my opinion, at this moment in time when there is a large outcry, I would
Mm.
say they need to be very like. There's. I'm not saying there's personally. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the format. There is some people that like it. There's some people that hate it. All that, but there is a large, massive outcry, especially on social media, that there is problems with Pauper or it has fundamental flaws or all that sort of stuff. And I feel like you have to appease these with regular updates. Even it doesn't have. Don't get me wrong. I'm not asking for a fancy video every 4 months
Oh,
or
no,
every two
no,
months.
no, no.
Like that video was great to see and great to listen to and stuff. But it could have easily been an article.
It could have been a tweet from a PFP Twitter account at
Yeah,
the end of the day.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the benefit of having the PFP as opposed to Wizards is that they can do things when they want to do things.
yeah,
So having updates every 2 months, even if it's just to say we're still looking at these cards, we're not doing anything yet, but we're still monitoring everything, goes a long way. And you don't need to go through all the rigmarole of like Hasbro and stuff to
yeah,
facilitate it. You can just do it,
yeah, yeah,
which I think they really do not take advantage of at all.
yeah. And I think
And
that's
it
probably the
it would
biggest thing.
buy them a lot of good faith with the community as well.
I think that's the big thing is the lack the like we have had no update from the PFP. As if you have been following this podcast generally, we've obviously always said as a hot take, you know, they're gonna comment, they're gonna comment. This is the perfect window to comment. But I think they put so much weight on the comment that they have to make it so big and fancy, and it just doesn't need to be that.
Mm.
It could literally just be, look, we're still monitoring this. Like we would have been if
I,
this was 2 months ago, we would have been laughing. We'd be like, right, okay, they still don't think there's anything wrong. That's fine.
yeah, I think as well. Yeah, you say like they put a lot of weight into the way they announce things when the announcement is essentially nothing.
Hmm.
Like you don't need to lean that hard in it. I think
Yeah.
one going into this a bit more. One thing I was really sort of disheartened by a bit was the amount of like every little segment was but what do you think? Oh, but what do you think about Prophetic Prism being unbanned? Or what do you think about Name Sticker Goblin? Or what do you think about Terror and Swiftbeer? And it just, I sort of get what they're trying to do, but it come off as like we have no idea what we're doing here, and we need the community to tell us what to do, which is not ideal really for people in that sort of position.
But again, I think that's a mix of. It's a mix of they're probably asking communities for their opinions, which is fine. But because again, it's because they're putting so much weight on these videos every 4 months or 4 times a year, 3 times a year, or whatever it's turned out to
Yeah.
be. That it comes across like you've waited 3 months to say, look, we're not changing anything. What do you actually think about like the state of the format? Like it does worry you a bit when they make such a big
Yeah.
thing out of these announcements and it's, oh, well, what do you think? Which
And
is,
just to sort of set it out there, I think both me and Teasdale are on a similar page where we're not like no change isn't the issue. I think no change is a fine way to do it, but just the way in which it was done shows a massive like lack of self-confidence like in themselves, and the lack of like communication in between these 2 points where they've changed nothing again just shows a lot of like not a lot of determination to do anything better with the format.
yeah, I have said as well, I do think that this format, as in not pauper, as in the state or the health of this format, is definitely one of the hardest type of formats to balance because as in the video Gavin said, the format looks healthy and it looks balanced. You know, you've got 4 decks, 5 decks or whatever rotating constantly. You've got a lot of decks that are playable underneath. The problem is to a lot of people is they don't like the speed and they don't like the fun of the 4 decks or whatever, or there's a lot like, so it currently does come across as a very balanced format, but it's just it's really difficult for them to fix that because you're never going to please everyone. You never and that also provides really, it also helps like the issue with the uncertainty and they don't know what to do, which, because let's be honest, I know I wouldn't know like where even, I would know where to start, I would like to say, but I wouldn't know how to fix this format with a lot of its fundamental issues and all that sort of stuff. So it is a hard place for them to be in, but I do think this sort of the way they've gone about it doesn't help that.
No, I think for me as well, like if you're wanting to actively ban stuff, I think the decision is probably pretty obvious in that you just ban Swift Spear and you ban Tolarian Terror, and then you see what happens. Like at the end of the day, they can always unban stuff if they feel like, oh well, this has maybe been a mistake. But if you start by hitting both those cards, mono red obviously is not going to die. It's mono red. It still has all the powerful tools. It just replaces that one drop with like Goblin Blast Runner or something else, and essentially stays the same deck. So you lose essentially nothing there, but just take it down from the super early kills. The same with mono blue Terror. You knock off the ability to just like turn 2, turn 3, 2 5/5s for 2 mana, and again remove the super early kills, but you don't harm like other blue decks. Like Fair is another blue deck that could come in to replace that. You could see like a mono blue Terror with just a different threat in that Terror slot, like a, I don't know, a Spider Golem or something, and go slightly less all in. But you've still got Serpent.
Yeah, effectively, like the mono blue Terror that we know now will die off. Obviously, Terror's the best threat in there, but mono blue Terror before Cryptic Serpent will basically just be the exact same, except you've got Cryptic Serpent instead of Terror.
Yeah.
And then blue black Terror will still be the exact same, but you've got Cryptic Serpent instead of Tolarian Terror.
Yeah, you don't kill off anything. You just remove the speed from the 2 fastest decks in the format, essentially, which is the entire problem. And I think those 2 cards in particular are principally responsible for the general increase in speed of the format. The only third one that I would probably look at but not take action with is All That Glitters. Obviously, that adds a lot of speed in the affinity decks, but those decks are way more fragile than Mono Red and Terror. And All That Glitters as a card adds a lot more to the format than Swift Spear and Terror, because it obviously improves Heroic and Bogles, which are really great decks to have in the format. They're not over the top on speed, and they provide a different sort of route to victory, essentially.
Yeah. I think ultimately, to me, it comes down to the way they want to tackle the format, and it's more, and the way they want to do it is they will fix it if something is obviously broken and powerful, like they did with the initiative guys and all that sort of stuff, where a lot of people are expecting them to have a suck it and see kind of approach. They can go out of the realms of, as you've said, of the Wizards of Coast bans. They don't have to have it every so often. They could literally have something banned on Friday and unbanned on Monday if it was a mistake. Not saying that they would, but obviously they have that agency to do that.
And I think not to that extreme, but that is probably something that they could utilize and will be fine. Like, pauper cards are really cheap. Like, if you ban Swift Spear and then have it banned for a month, 2 months, and then unban it, like, there's no complaint. Like, it's 4 Swift Spears. What are they, like 50p each? It's not a huge cost. It's not like banning like super expensive cards like Force Negation in Legacy or whatever. Like, you're not taking a huge financial hit on any players playing that deck.
Yeah.
And you can, like you say, you can organise your banned and restricted when you want. So you could literally put them a month or 2 months apart to just test this. Yeah. What gets, if we ban Swift Spear and Terror, what happens to the format? Is it an improvement? You test that for even a month with all the amount it gets played on Magic Online, you would have results of whether this is better or worse.
Yeah.
But I just don't think they're utilising that.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing that like they're doing one thing which is fine the way they're doing it, but they're doing it so sporadically. It's I think overall it's causing a less faith in like the PFP as a whole.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because they are great. We've had Weber on. We speak to quite a lot of them and all that sort of stuff. They are great and they know the format and all that sort of stuff. And it's great to see that they do have this. But then they're putting, as you said, they're putting so much time in between each announcement of non-announcements. It's lacking the faith, and then they're not utilizing the fact they're out of the realms of of Wizards.
I think that's the big thing is they need to understand that they don't need to operate like Wizards operates for banned and restricted announcements. Like, this one came right after just a Watsy one. Like,
it was coincidentally, but
you don't need to plan them in like that. And the way you can ban things can be different. Like, you don't need to do what Wizards have done, because you have that opportunity to change things up for the better, essentially.
And exactly like this time in particular, where Pauper it's gone through a massive turmoil over the past 2 years, that the format is 180'd completely. That it's completely understandable that people, a lot of people don't like the format or think there's a lot of issues with the format. And it's the perfect time for them to, as I say, go out of the realms of Wizards is where banning. It's perfect. Like, ban Swift Spear, ban Terror, ban whatever the hell you want, unban it in a month. What was that thing that they had on Arena? There was
like a temporary ban, basically.
Yeah, they basically banned something.
Even trying that. Yeah.
They banned something, and then a year later they went, "Oh, look, it is fully banned now," or whatever. Yeah. Like, there's so many different ways they can do it, but I do think they put a lot of weight on these announcements every 4 months, and I just think they need to be so regular, especially not like, I'm not saying every week, but I would at least say every few weeks after a set, just say, look, we're still monitoring it. We don't think there's an issue, whatever. Even if because you're putting all these big things on no change is really disheartening for people.
I think that's sort of something worth picking up on as well. This time in particular, we essentially had no announcements from Lord of the Rings, which introduced a load of changes. Then we had Commander Masters, which introduced loads of changes. Then we had Eldraine, which also introduced cards. And from, like, in that entire period, we had no announcements. Like you say, if we had 2 weeks of Lord of the Rings and then an announcement saying, "Oh, we've seen this Lord of the Reveal card's doing really well, we're keeping an eye on it, it seems fine at the moment," and then Commander Masters, or obviously it's introduced all the glitters, we're watching it, there's nothing happening at the moment, you would get, although it's a non-announcement, you would get a lot more good faith from the community over that.
Yeah. And I think and to be honest, I know this sounds really silly because as a panel, they should be there to fix the format when there's something wrong. Ultimately, they are basically just a face that all they need to do is just have communication. It's like as soon as you put It's like Ben Broad for Hearthstone. You know what I mean? You just as soon as you put a face to that person who seems to be in control, you just have to be. Even if you are talking, you know, absolute nonsense, it doesn't matter as long as you're there talking and like I am representing
Mm.
Hearthstone or I am representing the PFP. This is what I think,
Yeah.
and I think that's overall. I think the fundamental like gripes that people have. I would like to think.
Yeah. Um. I think one final thing, I guess, that I would like to mention on this topic is it was nice to see Sticker Goblin get a mention. For me, I think that all the cards in whatever Unfinity or whatever it
Yeah, yeah.
was that some are black border should basically just be blanket banned from the format. Um, I don't think they offer enough positives to keep the format split essentially between Magic Online and paper because Magic Online can't make these cards work.
Mm.
And even cards like Embiggen that are on both and work in both, like they're so skewy as cards. Like you cast it if you're playing F&M and there's a new player come up and I'll play this, I'll borrow this Infect deck, and then they cast Embiggen. Like there's no way they're doing Embiggen for the right number.
Mm.
Like it doesn't work.
Mm.
So all these Unfinity cards just that don't offer anything positive to the format, and for my money, should just be completely removed.
Yeah, I
Um,
genuinely agree. To be fair, as much as they are
yeah.
fun and you see like funny interactions, and so they're not a net positive at all. Um,
But yeah, nice to see. Obviously, they're aware that Sticker Goblin in particular is drastically different in paper and on Magic Online.
oh, definitely, and it's nice to see.
Um, yeah,
Um, but yeah, I'd just like to add that overall, it's always a positive seeing them comment on the format and their thoughts on the
oh yeah,
format. It is great to see. Please do not think we are giving them hate or whatever. We as casting comments have so much respect for the PFP anyways. We are just from an outsider in giving our thoughts. So they are
yeah,
doing a great job and we're just offering our
definitely.
improvements. And it's nice
It's
to see.
more what we would want on top of what they're already doing, rather than discrediting what they are doing.
Yeah.
Because obviously, the video that they put together is like, especially on a day when you got an announcement from Wizards that basically said nothing's banned, and that was it. Like there was no explanation at
Mm.
all. Just nothing's banned. Here's some new boosters that we're flogging. Why don't you buy these? And then to get the pauper format panel video after that announcement, like talking through what they're looking at, what they're thinking about, it's obviously worlds apart. It's
Yeah,
very clear that the PFP is a massive improvement from Wizards having any sort of control over the format.
100%.
Um, but we would just like them to utilize that power even more than they
Yeah,
currently are, essentially.
definitely. 100%. Anyways, that is enough of the announcement. You can check it out on YouTube on Gavin's Good Morning Magic channel. So check it out if you have not seen it. It is like 6 minutes long. Um, it's very well polished.
I think both of us obviously reposted it as well. If
Yeah.
you can't find it on YouTube, it'll be on Twitter.
So it is great to see. Obviously, check it out. Anyways, that is enough of the news. We have talked obviously quite a bit about the PFP announcement video.
I think we actually have more news. I
Do
haven't
we?
added it, but I've just thought about it. Yeah.
Do we?
And
What
it
did we miss?
sort of, well, going on from the Wizards ban announcement, there's a new
Oh, the pack.
booster pack setup coming out, which is essentially a combination of collector and not collector,
Draft and set.
draft and set boosters that you can, or set boosters that you can draft with, or something like that. But pauper wise, there's a couple of things that may influence the format. So the first thing is from when this booster gets introduced, which I believe is in whatever is it an Innistrad set, Carl of Mana or
Right,
something?
okay, yeah, yeah.
When that comes out, it's introduced. There's 20 less commons in that set and 20 more uncommons. Basically to work with the numbers in these new pack layouts. So that's from then on, we're getting 20 less commons per set. And also, Maro said that due to these new packs having a lot more higher rarity cards distributed for a limited format, I think they've got, did you say like 50% more chance
Yeah,
of having a second rare essentially than
something along them
current
lines.
current draft packs? It means that there will be a, what's the word? Basically an increase on lower power level, or lower rarity, higher power level removal spells to make the limited formats work. So essentially, we're probably going to get more really good common removal to facilitate limited being playable with these new packs.
The thing that I find interesting, well, to be fair, it kind of does happen in removal. It's kind of the case, not the case anyways, but the power level has shot up in the last 2 years. Like Talarian Terror probably shouldn't have been a common. Synth to an extent probably is too strong as a common. There's a lot of random cards that are questionable common in recent times. So it'd be interesting to see what the common level is, the common power level is when they've openly said, look, we're increasing the power level.
Yeah, and I think for me, obviously, this is sort of two sides of the coin where because there's 20 less commons and 20 more uncommons, cards like Talarian Terror and like Synth that were common now have room to maybe have been uncommon. But yeah, also the fact that they are now needing to make removal better and push it down in rarity to make up for them like more rares in the set. It sort of swings and roundabouts. It'll either get better, get worse, or stay the same, I suppose.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on though, for sure, and something for the PFP going back to keep an eye on, for sure. So, but yeah, another bit of news, which to be fair was a weird one because we were talking about it today generally, and just obviously
Yeah, I just
something.
forgot to add it.
Yeah, we just for. Yeah, well. So yeah, there you go. That's one episode of Casting Comments done. We've basically been here for half an hour, and we haven't even touched on anything of relevance that you guys are here for generally. But here we are. Let's go diving into the challenges.
Yeah.
Saturday the 14th.
Yeah. So it's sort of what we've come to expect from challenges, but with a slight slant on it, I guess. First place was Corgate. Second place was Fams. Third and fourth was Corgate and Pingerburn. And then fifth through eighth was a Mono Blue Terror, a Kuldotha, another Corgate, and a Blue White Glitters. And then the near misses, ninth was another Corgate, and 10th was Heroic. So yeah, sort of the decks we've come to expect in a top 8. Obviously a big showing for Colgate. That's obviously I guess the deck out of the top 5 that's on top this week. Or I guess maybe it's more like the deck out of has joined into the Terra versus Red rotation. So it's now Terra Red and Colgate taken week by week to be the most played deck.
Yeah, it's definitely it's kind of been on the rise, to be fair, and it's definitely a solid deck by it's silly not to think about Colgate when you're talking about the best decks. It's always nice to see, I guess. It's like the slower one out of the 3-ish.
Yeah,
So
it's probably the fairest of them all.
Yeah. No Cinderella pun intended.
No. And the other two things that stick out for me, obviously Fams getting in there in second place, being essentially our combo deck that can top 8 outlier, as we usually have from week to week. It'll either be Fams or Elves or combo walls.
Meeting of Minds Fams as well. So
that's a pretty sweet one.
I guess it's pretty nice with obviously the new edition of Murmur Mystic.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. Without diving into the deep dive into that deck.
And then the only sort of notable omission for me, I guess, is there's no sticker red. The 2 red decks in the top 8 are Pingerburn and Kuldotha. And I believe there was only 1 sticker red in the top 32. And the rest were basically Kuldotha variants. So like either Forge Chanter or Blast Runner, and Pinger Burns. So Pinger Burn making a decent comeback.
As I got told the other day, bad burn is still burn.
I guess it's maybe set up a lot better against a Colgate meta, as you can go a bit slower and still have a chance at winning. I don't know sort of how many end the festivities they had in, or cards to that effect. Obviously, gives you quite a bit of game against Colgate. Yeah, so this one's got 3 ends in the main, which obviously gives you a lot of game against a deck like Colgate. I guess So finally, for me, numbers wise, as we've been seeing, from our Swifty decks, Terror decks, Marinforcer decks, Basilisk Gate decks, and Avenging Hunter decks. The Avenging Hunter decks are sort of getting edged out here. I think it's starting to become a top 4 rather than a top 5. But in the top 32, there was 8 Swift Spear decks, 4 Terror decks, 5 Marinforcer decks, only 1 Avenging Hunter deck, and 8 Basilisk Gate decks. So that ended up being 26 out of the top 32. So there was 6 outliers, mostly White Weenie and Heroic and Bogles. So yeah, that's essentially what we've come to expect. Most weeks, obviously, Terra and Avenging Hunter decks have taken a bit of a dip. Terra is generally about 6 through 8 decks, and Avenging Hunter decks usually around 4 decks. So they're made up for by the 8 Basilisk Gate decks, which were all Colgate as well. That there was no other gates anymore. There's just always Colgate.
Colgate best deck confirmed. But yeah, it's interesting that basically, as you say, we've went from a 2-horse race to a 3-horse race, and the second horse is almost slowly dying off a little bit. But
this week, anyway.
Yeah. But it's been a bit down as of like last week, I think, as well, from memory. So, but it kind of leads into what the PFP said. It is a rotating format, mainly with the 3 decks, as you say. Obviously, you do have weeks where like Blue White Glitters, like last week, Blue White Glitters was doing really well. This week it's kind of done okay, and it is nice to see that it is like healthy because it is rotating. But yeah, I don't know. It's just there's only so many times we can cover these 5 decks, I guess.
It is, it is getting like that at the moment. It's very much week in, week out. There's Mono Red there. Obviously, there's 3 varieties of Mono Red, but they're essentially all Swift Sphere decks. Mono Blue Terror, Colgate are both essentially the only version of that deck. Like the other Terror decks now are just almost non-existent, and like I said, there Colgate is essentially the only Basilisk Gate deck now. So yeah, it is getting tough. It's interesting that Blue White Glitters has put up better numbers this week as well. It was one of the decks I thought was dropping off a bit with Grixis Affinity coming back, but that hasn't quite happened, and it's sort of overperformed what I expected. Obviously 1 copy in the top 8 there as well.
Gets through Prismatic Strands.
Yeah, probably true. It beats up on Colgate and the outlier decks of like White Weenie.
Yeah. Probably would have something to do with it, and they've got Turn Aside for the Dust to Dust. Dust to Dust's like an old age answer to Affinity. Would you like to move on to Sunday?
Yeah, there's nothing really else for me there. We were gonna look at doing deep dives again, but there was basically nothing interesting at all other than the decks we see week in, week out. Like the next most interesting thing was White Weenie, which we've talked about before.
Yeah. Well, we'll pick them back up on a week-to-week basis as and when, especially if there's less news. Like there was a lot of news this week, so we'll have a look on a week-to-week basis. Do you want me to do the Sunday?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so Sunday the 15th of October, we had first place was a Colgate again. Second place was Pingerburn. Third and fourth was Grixis Affinity and White Weenie. And 5th through 8 was Combo Walls, Colgate, Heroic, and a Blue White Glitters. The two near misses was Ponza in 9th and another blue white glitters in 10th. So not a bad top 8. Again, we've got quite a lot of like, I would say, I don't want to say outliers, but we've obviously got combo walls being the combo deck. That's kind of like making the way in. We obviously have some Grixis Affinity making a return again. And then we have Heroic and White Weenie, which are generally featured somewhere in the top 16 upwards. They're very well positioned through all the Corgate and Burn and all that sort of good Terra piles.
Yeah, it's it looks a bit more positive than the Saturday, but when you start to compare them, it's very similar. Obviously, there's the 2 copies of Colgate rather than 3, but there's still there's the Pinger Burn, there's the Blue White Glitters, there's a Heroic that made it into top 8. Obviously, on the Saturday it was only 10th. And then a lack of Terra, which is interesting. It was pretty down numbers wise on the Sunday as well, so it makes sense that if there's less pilots, there's less likely it's going to be in the top 8. And yeah, Ponza proven that it's still Ponza. It still gets close every now and then, no matter what the meta game is. It just keeps plugging away at the lands.
The one Avenging Hunter deck on the Saturday was a Ponza as well, so like it's still in there, still doing well.
And yeah, like you say, the combo walls making our sort of combo can steal a challenge slot. As I said just before, it very much feels like there is always a slot for either combo walls or fams or elves or something sort of along those lines.
Especially as Corgate kind of seems to be increasing in popularity as well. Like Corgate, like it has counters, but a lot of times the combo decks in Pauper are set up to beat counter spells because they've spent an eternity dealing with Spell Stutter Sprite, so they're kind of like built to beat that. So.
And it doesn't have many counters either. They obviously only run the 4 counter spells,
and maybe some spell pierces here and there.
Even if that sometimes they cut on 1 counter spell, but yeah. Like obviously the Hydro Blast and the Blue Elemental Blast doing very little. And the sideboards in general of the Colgate at the moment do very little against something that's not just red Terra or Glitters / Affinity. If you look at most of the sideboards, as I think we mentioned last week,
we did,
they're essentially just 4 Dust to Dust and then a mix of blue and red blasts. So yeah, if you line up against Colgate with a combo deck that doesn't get hit by blue or red blast, you're probably going to have a decent time. I think Elves, especially this week, probably looks very well positioned on the Sunday. Obviously, there's the Pinger Burn's a bit of an awkward one with the main deck and the festivities, but against everything else, it probably looks pretty strong.
Yeah. Like to see some more elves next week.
Yeah. And then numbers wise, I guess, very similar to the Sunday. There was 5 Swift Spear decks, 3 Terror decks, 6 Mare Enforcer decks, which is exactly the same. 5 Avenging Hunter decks, so we're up on Avenging Hunters on Sunday, and 4 Basilisk Gate decks. So that goes to 23 out of the top 32. So we had 9 outliers, which is a lot more than we usually have. We usually have between 4 and 6 generally week to week. So that's positive, although again, the majority of the outliers are White Weenie, Heroic, Bogles. I believe there was one. I think there was a black-white deck somewhere, but I can't remember where it was.
And doesn't help at the time of recording, the deck list does not work.
Yeah.
Magic Online deck thingy has broken.
But yeah, slightly more positive, breaking away from sort of those 5 essentially top deck archetypes, top deck cards. But 9 is not a lot, really.
No, not really.
But it's a lot more than we're used to.
Definitely. And there was a sweet deck that we were kind of debating covering as well, as you've mentioned before we started. There was a turbo initiative People might have seen it. I think Webber's covered it. Callie's recorded with it, I believe. And it's basically like a sticker goblin, but turbo initiative, as most people have come to expect. Running the Avenger Hunters, Goliath Paladins, Trailblazers Torch. And then
It's actually on MTG top 8, so we can go over it a bit if you want.
Yeah.
May as well. So yeah, as Teasdale was saying while he finds the the list, it's sort of a creature-based combo deck. Essentially, it's got a lot of ramp in the form of like Rite of Flame, Seething Song, and the Sticker Goblin, along with Lotus Petal.
Mm-hmm.
And the I don't know really what the lands are called, like the Sandstone Needle type lands, depletion lands. And Simian Spirit Guides, and essentially you're trying to ramp out an initiative card. So you've got the 4 Avenging Hunters. This one plays 4 Trailblazers Torch as well, and you have the 4 Goliath Paladins as the white Avenging Hunter. And then I guess the other sort of wrinkle in this was the other creatures that it plays are Crimson Fleet Commodore as like a, I guess, pseudo initiative creature with the Monarch. Like a turn 1 Commodore's probably going to do a lot of heavy lifting, unless you're against mono red.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 boarding parties as well, just as a decent threat that is again mono red, so you can ramp it out pretty easily with Simian Spirit Guide, Rite of Flame, etc.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting take on it. To be fair, it's nice to see like Sticker Goblin's obviously done something for it as like a seeding song.
Mm.
It's pretty cool. I guess it's as interesting as it's getting. Yeah, we have seen obviously different variations on some sort of turbo initiative. Generally, they don't feature in the challenges as of late, obviously since the bannings. But there's obviously different ways to turbo these out from Metamorphosis and the Sky Shroud Cutter has been one
Yeah,
previously.
I guess my take from this is they've obviously moved away from needing to use Dark Ritual
Yeah,
because there's now the Sticker Goblin
yeah,
as like a Dark Ritual on legs. So if you can just go like turn 1 tap land, turn 2 Sticker Goblin, Lotus Petal, you're probably getting to your initiative on turn 2 anyway.
yeah.
So you can sort of cut it down to being essentially a red green deck splashing the Paladin,
Yeah.
which makes your mana a lot more reasonable. Like the other or the previous versions of Turbo Initiative, like you say, were very iffy on the color requirements. It was sort of black ramp, and then you were casting green and white cards.
Yeah. It's definitely nice to see. Showcases the power of initiative, as much as it is probably overshadowed by the power of terror to some extent, and red. But
Yeah, and you sort of get that in the sideboard. Obviously the obligatory 4 Pyroblasts. There's also 2 Circle of Protection Blues. And then 4 Moments Piece, 2 Ancient Grudge as a, I guess, artifact hedge, and 3 Fiery Cannonades.
I feel like I seen the guy whose list it was who came 15th. I'm sure I seen him tweet and basically say he ran Weber's list and he'd just changed like 2 cards in the sideboard and put 2 cop blues in because he was struggling against terror. So
yeah,
it's definitely a cool deck, and I definitely would recommend trying it out. I did go to play it the other day, and then I realized I'd sold the torches, but it does seem quite fun.
I guess that's the main downside is the expense of the actual initiative cards themselves. I think the Paladins are like 10 tickets each.
Are
I
they?
think Hunters, yeah, I think so.
What?
Hunters are like 5, and obviously Trailblazer Torches are like 3 to 4. And obviously playing 4 of each adds up fast. I also think the depletion lands aren't inexpensive, although I haven't looked at those in a while.
Yeah, I remember I think the red one was quite, but the other ones are like I think I paid like 3 tickets for them each.
Yeah, well, yeah. So 3 tickets each when you need what, 4,
Yeah,
5,
three.
6, 7, 8,
Yeah,
9.
three
It's
tickets for
nearly.
the
It's like a
red one.
full pauper deck.
Yeah. But it's definitely sweet. It's different for sure. If you have the cards, I'd recommend giving it a go. I do struggle to find the depletion lands, to be fair, in paper as well. They're quite
Yeah.
difficult to find.
Yeah, they're
So,
obviously fairly old, coming out in Mercadian masks, and I
mm,
don't think they've ever been reprinted.
no, I don't think so either.
Um, the red one, especially as well, is played in Legacy.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, they are hard to find. But if you
So,
are wanting a fun combo deck that's something a bit different, um, while you've got access to Sticker Goblin, you may as well give it a go.
yeah, yeah. Is it the that Cascade Rim thingy deck playing the
Yeah, that
in
plays the red
Legacy?
one. Yeah.
All my Legacy knowledge, by the way, comes from Reese. So I usually ask him something, and then he says yes or no, or looks at me funny, and then that's about as much as my Legacy knowledge goes nowadays. So one day I used to play, honest. I used to.
You might venture back eventually.
Maybe. Ban Skyclave Apparition, so I can actually skill intensively beat the other D&T players, and then I might play again.
You don't need it now. You just play Orcish Bowmaster, right? D&T is
Oh,
just black white now.
is he?
I
Oh,
don't know. I haven't looked in a while, but it was last time I checked.
uh,
Bowmaster too good.
oh, gee. Mono
And
white
with
for
that
life.
legacy talk, do you want to move on to the hot takes?
Yeah, that's so well. Thank you for everyone joining us at the Legacy Casting Commons episode. That is about as far as it goes. But no,
um,
let's move on.
yeah, so one hot take, not from last week, but that I had pinned to the notes that I was going to bring up. Obviously, we've had a PFP banned and restricted announcement, and Swift Spear has still not been banned.
Yeah,
So my hot take of Swift Spear will not be banned this year is still surviving.
yeah. It's
Um,
mine still hasn't happened, by the way. I have 2 weeks, I think, for the 60 basic lands. Don't think it's happening.
that was a bold one.
Yeah, well, you can hope.
My first actual hot take from last week was that we'll see very similar top eights, which are essentially the decks that we used to seeing being mono red, blue white glitters, Corgate, and Terra
Mm.
sort of gardens, but I'm sort of falling out of favour with gardens a bit. And then plus one outlier. Saturday, this was basically exactly what we've seen. Sunday, we had a couple more outlier-ish decks. We had obviously White Weenie and Heroic getting there as well. So yeah, it sort of 50% true, 50% not true.
Can I just say, man beat Gardens in an open, and now he's just shitting on it all over the spot. He's like, it's crap. Deck's bad.
Well, I mean, if it can't beat Mono Red, it's probably not playable, really, is it? I played against 4 Campfires and 2 Weather the Storms, and it didn't work. So his garden's really playable.
I like it. I like it. No, is the answer. Gardens is not playable. It's a trap.
But yeah, I think in general we've obviously just seen a downtick in results
Yeah,
from
definitely.
it.
Yeah, definitely.
Obviously, the uptick of Colgate especially is going to make it a lot harder for
Oh, yeah,
Gardens because
definitely.
it's not a good matchup at all. So yeah, if Colgate continues to increase to join sort of the Terra Mono Red cycle, and then with Blue White Glitters sort of sprinkled in there, it doesn't sound like a good place for Gardens to do well.
Yeah, agreed. Very much so. Um, Following on from that, my hot take was more mid range in the top 8 next week. And if I left it at that, I could maybe have won something. But because I wrote Boros, Black White, Gardens, and Pestilence, I don't think I can win this because I discovered on Twitter that apparently Corgate is a mid range deck. This is what I got told on Twitter. There was voting and everything, and it was apparently it's a mid range deck, but
I could see that. It sort of makes sense.
it's not really a
I
mid
guess
range
it,
deck in
it
my eyes. But
probably doesn't have enough counter spells and or removal to really be a control deck, I
mm,
guess. And it's more of a mid game swing with a big guy. So
mm,
I can see it being mid range. It makes sense.
that means I win.
Um,
It counts.
yeah, I'll give you that one.
But
Colgate is a lot more mid
does it?
range than we normally see.
Yeah, but also not really what I was thinking. To be fair,
No.
but take the wins.
My second take from last week was that White Weenie and Heroic will bounce back to making top 8 spots. Obviously, really good showings this week from White Weenie and Heroic with a top 4, a top 8, and a 10th place. So yeah, but that was a a pretty decently landed one, if I say so myself.
Yeah, not bad. My doom and gloom one at the end was that more variety content creators will start announcing their departure from Pauper, similar to Bryant Cook, who announced it last week. Not necessarily the same as such, but I did see that Phil at Thraben U had quote tweeted or whatever the announcement and basically said, look, he's stopped recording any Pauper content.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it needs massive amounts of change before he'll return. So it's
Yeah, that's a shame.
not really the same thing, but yeah, it's definitely a shame. Another net negative to the format. Obviously, you want more of the Bryants, the Thraben News, the Mengus, and all these sort of things. All these people, even if they're not full time, constant Pauper content creators, you want Pauper in their like repertoire,
Yeah.
as it was.
I think, yeah, obviously a big issue with this is a lot of the Pauper content is created through recording leagues.
Mm.
And leagues are on the real extreme end of this metagame where it's basically just Terra and Monored. So I can't imagine trying to record a league with a like Interest and Brew or a combo deck or something and just constantly playing against Monored and Terra is gonna go particularly well.
Yeah, definitely.
It might be worth some of the creators, I guess, starting to record challenges as they are a bit more varied, but yeah, it's how much can you do really?
Yeah, exactly. Would you like to move on to hot takes for next week?
Yeah. So my first one is probably not that hot of a hot take.
Lukewarm at best.
But yeah, lukewarm take. That Terra will basically rotate back in next week. We've had last week it was a bit low, and this week it's almost like just not there at all. There was one copy. So I imagine next week we'll be back to our normal 5 copies or whatever it is in the top 8.
Considering the curse, it actually won't be next week; it'll be the week after.
Well, yeah, possibly, but I'm gonna say next week.
Mine. I'm just trying to make myself interested. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm going a bit mental. So Bogles will win one of next week's challenges. I'm also going to include Heroic in this just because, I think Bogles is a bit of a stretch, but
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I mean, I think win's a bit of a stretch at this point.
no,
I
win.
could definitely see either of them being in the top 8, but yeah,
Nope, we're going win or nothing.
I like the
Win
ambition.
or nothing.
I guess my second one is sort of what we've been talking about. Is that Corgate and Glitters / Grixis Affinity? I'm still including that there, although it's still a bit iffy. Are both stepping up to meet the top 2 decks, being Monored and Terra, while Gardens is falling out of favour a lot more than the rest.
Makes sense, to be fair.
So we'll probably be able to determine this a bit more from the results next week. But especially if we look at the numbers and see Avenging Hunters go down, that's a pretty decent indication. Unless everyone just plays Ponza.
Could also be a possibility. Mine was. I was thinking mine's like kind of like I wasn't even thinking about Corgate when I wrote this, but then I realised that obviously that is included in it. I wrote 3 prismatic strand decks will make it into the top 8 next week, and then I didn't realise that basically obviously I forgot Corgate.
You didn't realise that both top 8s we've just talked about both have 3 prismatic strand decks in. Actually, Saturday has 4.
Take your logic elsewhere. 3 non-Corgate prismatic strand decks will make it into the top 8 next week. Let's write that down.
That's a bit more of a bold thing.
There we go.
3 white weenie decks will make top 8 next week.
Non-Corgate decks.
Just put white weenie, it's easier.
Non-Corgate prismatic strand decks. There we are. We've wrote it, guys. We've wrote it.
That's bold.
There you go. We're going to have either 3 white weenie. We're going to have 2 Boros as well in there. Why not? I don't know. Summit. We're going to have something interesting.
And I bet 8 white weenie decks in the top 8.
So, do you have anything else? Sorry, I'm slowly dying here.
At least you had the courtesy to mute your mic there.
Yes.
But no, nothing else from me this week.
So, guys, if you have enjoyed this very toned down episode, I will be back to my normal self next week. So I'll be my hyper self and hurt everyone's ears yet again.
And make sure you turn your audio down next week, for at least for the first 5 seconds of the podcast.
It's all right. I edit it down. Don't worry. So yeah, guys, if you have enjoyed this podcast, please do not forget to share it with your friends, your family, your local pauper community. Word of mouth has obviously given us a massive influx of new viewers, which is obviously fantastic to see. I don't have a profession to share it to this week because I can't think of one. Tell your doctor. I don't know. Tell them how much you love the podcast and that they should listen to it. But that is all from us at Casting Commons. Until next time, and do not forget to stay hydrated if you're on YouTube.
Prime.
See you later.